Very happy occasion, not just of Bez Bar Mitzvah, but the entire Jewish world right now is ecstatic. Right now, you guys are sitting here by Fabrenga, but 3 hostages that are being released literally into Jewish hands. So, whatever you may think of the deal, the terrible, terrible deal, but there's definitely a simcha taking place in the whole world. So, the Medrash relates in this week's parsha, Ilulei hatzfardeya, if not for the frogs, how would Hashem have been able to punish the Egyptians? This is what the Medrash says. The question is, there's many plagues, right? There's 10 of them. There's blood, plague of firstborn, there's lice. What was special, what was unique about the frogs? That the Medrash relates that because of the frogs, or if not for the frogs, Hashem would not have been able to punish the Egyptians. Anybody know? You know the talk?
They had
no what? They jumped into the ovens, right? So there's something unique.
First they had the snake, and then the frogs, then the lice.
Right. There's a lot of plagues. In the denial of Hashem, there exists 3 kinds of AntiSemites, right? The world today is not short of Jew haters. People hate us. Half the world hates us. Look on social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. By the way, today, major catastrophe in the entire universe. Big problem.
TikTok is done.
TikTok was shut down. Massive problem. There are influencers who their whole lives
People say we should
are centered around TikTok, and TikTok was shut down. Big problem. So, in the denial of Hashem, there are 3 levels. Level number 1 is a man called Bilam. Bilam hated Jews, but at the end of the day, when push came to shove, he says, Lo uchal la'avar es pi Hashem, I cannot go against Hashem's words. Level number 2 was a man called Sancheriv. Sancheriv hated God, and he cursed him at every opportunity. Cursed. And level number 3 was a man called Paroi. In last week's parsha, when Moshe Rabbeinu says, please let my people go so that they may serve me, Paroi's response was, Lo yodaiti es Hashem, I never heard of God. I don't know who he is. I have no idea who this guy is. So level number 1 is Bilam, level number 2 is Sancheriv, and level number 3 is Paroi. Who is the worst? Both? Number 1? So to understand who is worse, when you go out and ask people to put on tefillin, right? The Bachrim from the Pomona Mesifta, they come to Manhattan all the time, and they ask people to put on tefillin. There are 3 reactions from people. Reaction number 1 is, we're standing in Tel Aviv by the Mizrakai, Yehudi Taniach Tefillin, Jew put on tefillin, of course, with pleasure, I'd love to, let's put on tefillin. That's reaction number 1, which is every student's gold mine. Reaction number 2 is what happened to me a few times. You ask a Jew to put on tefillin, he comes over to you and he starts screaming at you, why are you not in the army, what are you doing converting people, spitting at us, that kind of stuff. And reaction number 3 is you ask a Jew to put on tefillin, and he completely ignores you. There was I got an email 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night, it was the last night of Hanukkah, and somebody emails me, he says, Rabbi, I live literally a block away from the Chabad house, and tonight there was some students, there was a boy, 15 years old, 16 years old, asked me if I'm Jewish, and I ignored him. I'm sure he wanted me to put on tefillin, right? It was Hanukkah, it was night, he didn't really put on tefillin, right? He wanted to give him a menorah. He says, but I ignored him, but the Muslim who I was walking with screamed to the boy, he said, he's Jewish. And I continued to ignore it. I went inside the store. And when I came out of the store, I went around to avoid the boy. But he said, when I got home, I felt so bad that I decided I need to do something Jewish. So I gave charity to my 2 favorite charities, which were Jewish charities. He named them, so they're Jewish, it's legit, it's good. And this is what he says. So reaction number 3, when you ask a Jew to put on tefillin and he ignores you, what's the worst? Doesn't care, right? When your spouse shouts at you, there can be 3 kinds of reactions. But reaction number 2 is she shouts at you, you shout back. But the worst thing you could possibly do to your spouse when she shouts at you is to ignore her. The worst thing is to ignore an email that is sent to you. Today's day, well, you can't ignore WhatsApp because the guy can see if you read it or not. But our email you can ignore. It's the worst thing to do. Because when you ignore, you deny the existence. Pari was the kind of person who denied God's existence. Not acknowledging it means you haven't touched him, you haven't affected him. When you asked the Jew to put on tefillin, he screamed at you, you know you've affected him. You know you've done something. There's something there which you can deal with. You've awakened something inside of him. But when you ask him to put on tefillin and he ignores you, it means you haven't even touched him yet. So Paroi was the kind of guy who ignored you. So therefore God had to bring a special kind of animal to punish him. Because in animals, there are 3 kinds of animals. There's a dog and a cat, which love you so much, which you see how they enhance our existence. And then there's a kind of animal like a snake and a scorpion, which stings you, which bites you. And then says the Talmud, there's a 3rd kind of animal, which is a special kind of animal, which is a frog. A frog is nishtaher or nishtahin. It's not here, it's not there, we don't know, yes, no. It's the kind of animal that just like ignores. It's like we don't know what it's doing. Says Hashem, I'm going to bring the frog to subdue this special impurity of Pharaoh. I'm going to bring the frog, who is nishtaher or nishtahin, who is the ignoring kind of animal, to bring you down. And like you said, the frogs had mysterious levels of sacrifice to climb into the ovens, to do everything possible to bring Paro's clipper, that impurity